It's day 69 in the ghost house, also known as Halloween. Well, that was spooky. Speaking of spooky, Halloween is just around the corner. It's that one time of the year it's appropriate to dress up like a weirdo and roam around the streets. Obviously, the holiday means a bit more to kids, as trick-or-treating is what most people associate with Halloween Day. But I, like many gamers, enjoy taking the holiday to play something appropriately themed. Be it a game with a slightly darker tone, more Halloween festive mood, or a game scary enough to make you bricks faster than someone spending big bucks on one of those expensive Nintendo Lego sets. I want that question blocked so bad. Hi, I'm Frank, and in today's Frank's 5, I'll be discussing 5 games you should play on Halloween Day. For this list, I will be picking 5 games I personally recommend you play this Halloween season. If you disagree, you're probably one of those people who like candy corn or something. Candy corn crusader or not, let me know your favorite Halloween traditions in the doobly-doo. Before we get into the games, make sure to drop a like, hit subscribe, and click that notification bell to stay up to date on all things Frank.
Number 5.
Most people I know typically like to spend Halloween watching horror movies. Classics like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Friday the 13th are among the most watched. Being that these are classics in the horror genre, it makes sense that some of them would see video game adaptations. While I'm sure many remember the recent Friday the 13th PvP game, which saw players taking on the role of either one of the Camp Crystal Lake counselors or Jason Voorhees himself, but the franchise's debut video game was actually in 1989 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Similar to its modern equivalent, Friday the 13th sees players controlling one of 6 camp counselors at Camp Crystal Lake as they attempt to defeat Jason Voorhees. As a Camp Crystal Lake counselor, your goal is to try to survive sudden death. You do this by defeating the random enemy monsters that spawn, avoiding Jason's attacks, and upgrading your weapons. Just be ready to die because you're gonna do that a lot. Seem too scary for ya? Just pretend it's a Scooby-Doo game, except instead of capturing you and tying you up, you get killed. Like Zoinks, crew, I think I found a clue! Now, I'm sure a lot of you are probably wondering, why would I recommend Friday the 13th? It's notorious for being a pretty game, and it honestly hasn't held up very well. But that's part of the charm. Horror games were in their infancy stages back in the 80s, and honestly, the bad controls and unfair UI make it feel that much more frightening. You're gonna be doing a lot of backtracking, wandering around the camp, when boom, Jason appears to your day. The game is pretty horrifying in its own right, and it's definitely worth at least giving a try, especially if you plan to torture yourself this Halloween. It's a retro throwback I think people need to remember exists. Not because it's good, or because it's bad, but just because it exists.
Number 4.
One of my favorite co-op gaming memories I have is playing Left 4 Dead back in the Xbox 360 days. Valve and Turtle Rock took the Half-Life engine and released an amazing cooperative zombie survival experience that's a blast to play even today. It never took itself too seriously, and it offers up balanced gameplay that allows for each player's strengths and weaknesses to shine. Last year, Turtle Rock released the spiritual successor, Back 4 Blood. Fans of Left 4 Dead felt right at home, as everything that made Left 4 Dead such a fun time back in the day is still present in Back 4 Blood. There's still loads of weapons to pick up, and waves upon waves of the undead to slaughter. Plus, Turtle Rock has been keeping the game relevant by releasing expansion packs, with the latest one coming out at the tail end of August. These expansions offer even more content, such as new maps, new characters, new ridden hives hidden within pre-existing maps, and more. They even plan to release even more in their 3rd expansion. While most of Back 4 Blood remains identical to Left 4 Dead, the newly implemented card mechanics add extra buffs and boosts that can drastically change your playstyle. If you want to build your deck so that your character focuses mainly on melee combat, feel free. There's something so satisfying about taking down the undead with a baseball bat. It doesn't seem that effective in real life, but in the game, with the right perks, it becomes an amazing combination that allows you to regain health and increase your speed with every swing. Regardless of your playstyle, Back 4 Blood is best experienced with friends, as there's lots of opportunity to coordinate with your buddies. Strategizing effective ways to get through the maps is crucial for survival. If you're planning to hang out with friends this Halloween, definitely pick up Back 4 Blood.
Number 3.
When I think of a true horror game, my mind immediately falls upon Resident Evil. The Resident Evil franchise is perhaps the most prolific ongoing horror franchise to date. Since its initial 1996 release, Capcom has continued to revolutionize the horror genre with each new entry, while also continuing and retelling the lore-filled story of the Raccoon City outbreak. In my opinion, the original Resident Evil hasn't held up very well, and its remaster is still plagued with those awkward camera angles. Fun can still be had, but it's frustrating for reasons far beyond horror. In 2019, Capcom released a from-the-ground-up remake of Resident Evil 2, which would feature a completely different point of view that heavily changes up the way the game plays. The camera is now set to a third-person perspective, eliminating the funky fixed camera angles of the original. Also gone are the original game's tank controls. Thank you. The control scheme has been completely rebuilt, resulting in modernized gameplay that is on par with contemporary releases. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that the story remains mostly the same, Capcom could have convinced me that it was a new game entirely. Claire and Leon control like butter, and gunplay is vastly improved upon, making it actually feel really solid to shoot. When you have ammo, that is. Resident Evil 2 Remake is also not only a better experience than the original, but also a scarier one. I won't spoil anything for those of you who haven't given the remake a try, but let's just say Mr. X is like the terrifying nightmare edition of the Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah! Enemy AI is also a lot smarter, resulting in much more intense zombie encounters, as well as some frighteningly difficult boss fights, which I need to point out are extra gruesome and disturbing and oh so damn amazing. The Resident Evil 2 Remake not only became one of my favorite Resident Evil games, but quite possibly one of my favorite survival horror games of all time. It'll stress you out, scare the out of you, cause you a great deal of anxiety, but in all the right ways. Play this remake or the remake of 3 and get excited for the Resident Evil 4 remake coming out next year. Please don't let me down, Capcom. My hopes are higher than a giraffe.
Number 2.
When thinking of games that are spooky, Nintendo typically isn't in the conversation, especially if we're talking about the Mario franchise. I mean, sure, there's creepy sections in some of the games, like the Hell Valley Sky Trees in Super Mario Galaxy 2. What the f are you? But typically Mario games themselves don't have a creepy tone. That was until 2001 with the Nintendo GameCube launch title, Luigi's Mansion. This would be the second time we would see Mario's often shoved aside and neglected brother Luigi take the spotlight in his own game. Mario is Missing is technically Luigi's first game where he's the star character, but it sucks. I talked about it in my recent Obscure Mario Games video, so go check that out. Think of Luigi's Mansion as Resident Evil for kids, but not really. I mean, they're both in a mansion and there's undead lurking around, but that's about it. Luigi must explore the haunted mansion, himself at every corner, capturing ghosts with his poltergust, solving environmental puzzles, and collecting treasure, all to save Mario, who has been sucked into a painting by King Boo. Not gonna lie, that's actually pretty neat. Since in Mario 64 he was jumping into paintings, but now he's trapped in one. Irony! Luigi's not alone in this adventure, as he's assisted by mad scientist Dr. Egad. You know, the guy who looks like the sad onion on product packaging. I'm not sure what was up with Nintendo during this era, giving Mario a game where he uses a glorified sentient watering can, and Luigi a vacuum. Oh, vacuum. Mario. Mario? Mario! Ooh, I'm a ghost, man. Ooh. Oh, I'm gonna get you. Son of a... Come on. Mario! Jokes aside, Luigi's Mansion is actually a really fun, albeit short, experience. It's not scary by any means, and really is a game that can be enjoyed by just about anybody. The original game has been far succeeded by the recent Luigi's Mansion 3 Dark Moon on Nintendo Switch in almost every way. That said, the original GameCube release has a special charm to it. Everything from its concept to its short length made it feel incredibly experimental. And honestly, it was an experiment, one that would succeed and become a franchise of its own. If you decide to play some Luigi's Mansion this year, you really can't go wrong.
Number 1.
An often overshadowed aspect of Halloween Day is its absurdity. While many indulge in frightening festivities, or like to dress in a spooky, scary costume, others often result to something a bit more zany, and maybe even dress accordingly. When thinking of a game full of craziness, my mind immediately goes to Dead Rising, a series of open-world sandbox adventures taking place during a man-made zombie apocalypse. The first release, which was originally an Xbox 360 exclusive, starred franchise mascot Frank West on his quest to expose what went down at the Willamette Mall. The success of that initial release would spawn many sequels, with the latest being 2016's Dead Rising 4, which would unfortunately end up being developer Capcom Vancouver's last project before their closure in 2018. Rest in peace. Dead Rising 4 received generally mixed reviews, as many aspects of the franchise felt like an afterthought. That's why my personal recommendation is Dead Rising 2 2 Off the Record. Off the Record took Dead Rising's standalone sequel and modified it as a continuation of the original game. The new protagonist introduced in Dead Rising 2, Chuck Green, is pushed aside in favor of everyone's favorite, Frank West. I'd covered wars, you know. Not only is Frank a more interesting character, but his inclusion changes up the story and in some ways the gameplay. In the original Dead Rising 2, Chuck needs to track down anti-zombie medication, known as Zombrex, for his infected daughter Katie. This becomes multiple fetch quests of finding the Zombrex, traveling all the way back to the safe house, and administering the drug. Seriously? Katie. This was honestly one of the biggest drawbacks to the original Dead Rising 2, but in Off the Record, Katie's gone. And I mean gone. But that's okay, we have Frank. I'd covered wars, you know. See, in Off the Record, spoilers for Dead Rising, Frank himself was bit. Frank's obviously a bit smarter than Chuck since he's able to stockpile the Zombrex that he finds and take them instantly whenever he needs. Why the didn't Chuck think of that? The guy can carry around a wooden bench, but he can't slip a syringe in his pocket? See, Chuck? Not that hard. Dead Rising 2 Off the Record also features a free play mode, which removes all story elements, time limits, and objectives. This results in a much more open-ended sandbox experience. Why follow a plotline when you can just go on a zombie killing spree? You see, in the world of Dead Rising, everything is a weapon. The little squirt gun? Sure. That flashlight? Why not? The later entries, beginning with Dead Rising 2, would expand upon this everything is a weapon concept by allowing players to piece together stronger combo weapons with pre-existing objects. For example, combining a flashlight and a computer case results in a money hacker device. Seems legit. If you're looking for a game to play that features hundreds upon hundreds of the undead, but also doesn't take itself too seriously, look no further than Dead Rising 2 Off the Record. Dead Rising is one of those franchises that wears its zaniness upon its sleeve, and it's truly missed in the gaming pantheon. Please revive this franchise. Is it laying dormant really the best way to honor a veteran? I'd covered wars, you know. We know, Frank. We know. Hey, thanks for making it this far. Let me know in the comments section how you plan to spend your Halloween, or if it's past the holiday, let me know what you did. Also, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. Subscribe to keep the channel alive. Until next time, peace.